Yeah, naturally the QI, doesn't want to experience what I was going to say, and it doesn't want it to be in the sequence the way it's linear. I'm not. Okay? Did not want what it then became aware of that I was going to share with you on the previous video, did not want it to line up that way. Did not want it to be you to experience it the way that it was going to come out. That's called a block. Okay? That's what makes this particular QI against the law. Okay. It means it's blocking communications from the one. Right. So you know what happens when that happens. Okay. It's just like chuck it. Chuck it. And this is what how do I put this? First, certainly I don't impose my will on nobody else. Okay. But I knew as a child I didn't need a phone in order to communicate and have a relationship with the rest of the universe. This is where you get into the communication technology and how they throw everything out. They present all this technology, all the AI, and all this stuff is all generated by corporate stuff. Okay, they're always selling you something because you want to communicate and use a phone in which to do it. It's going to cost you money. Okay, so in other words, the entire DARPANET, which is D-Wave, is all fucked up. That's the truth of it. Okay, so what we're talking about here is how long is it going to take to fix a universe of communication in which all the language of the DNA, which is the math, is going to be able to communicate with each other so we all experience the law of one, to live in balance. How long is it going to take to do that? Right? Because as long as they exist, there's never going to be any balance, is there? The torque speed differential will always be fucked up in communication between one and the other. As a result of its ability to be able to feed on you, block your communication so you can't truly communicate with somebody else you want to share with them, which is your free will to do that, and that blocks you from doing that. Okay, that's a Nazi jackboot. That's all your corporations that operate on the planet. They're all operating without a permit. Every last one of them. That includes the ACIO. They're not telling you the whole truth. Now, I realize a lot of this is because they don't know, because they're not supposed to know, because they're never going to know. Because of what it is that they represent, because of the changes that are actually going to take place. See? These folks will not surrender their weapons to the one. Okay? And that's what it takes. In order to be one, to be with the law of one, you got to put all your weapons down. Because every time you use a weapon to harm another, that's a debt. So there's accountability for that. That's the truth of it. Okay? So these platforms are weaponized. All your phones, all your laptops. So I've said this to my clan mother, and I do this myself. Every day that she gets on that laptop, even though she's in the healing business, she's committing a crime. Did you know that? So am I. Because if you don't know this is how it works, and she knows this. It's like saying, you know that you're using a weaponized communication platform, but you're going to use it anyway. So now you got to use other technology to get through the same corporate fucking people unless you develop it and manifest it yourself. It's going to cost you money in order to get it. So now you're still held captive to the same system. See, the whole idea is to trap you into a space in which you got no other place to go. And this is how it is. They have no other place to go, or they get burned up. Or we have no other place to go except to obey and be part of that system to keep it running. That's how it works, Karen McDonald. Okay? So now we go back to Mama. They don't want to go back to Mama. Throw away all their technology and be with her in spirit and energy. Where you go deep into your heart and your soul, and now you begin to manifest in real time what it is you want to choose to experience in the future with her. Because it didn't begin with technology. And that's where Yellow Rose was right on point. So there's certain things that people communicate with. See, you're right there with us. You got the memo. Because Patty Broussard was right about one thing. We secured timeline 0. Your future is up to you, not me. I know the one that has a future. That was the message from Mr. Smith. One has a future. One is what love is. That's what the law is. Okay? This entire platform rolled out by DARPANET was meant to feed and siphon off all your soul energy by using it. Okay? But people are hooked on phonics, right? Hooked on the ions. That's the whole idea, was the ion transfer with all these systems right into you. That's why it's updating all the time, which is to update you all the time. So there's always a relationship between something that's finite, which is dead light, versus what I am, which is eternal light. And the difference in that is the torque speed differential, which is why it shuts down all my communication. It doesn't want to experience it. It can't, because the amount of energy that's represented by that music doesn't play that music. It's not an original musician because it can't experience eternity. So it's against the law. That's why the crimes, that's why I jumped in here. List all the crimes. DSAHK was actually one of the first beings that really sort of put it in everybody's face. Okay? And it's true. And I know that from my own childhood, what I was experiencing when I was a child. Remember I mentioned this before about experiencing trauma everywhere that I go. Okay, so now you're back to the math, the music. The music and the math is not balanced. It's a fallen, fucked up system. Okay, and so what happens is now you're measuring the train, the planetary consciousness field. So when DSAHK, which is Dante Satori, talked about not supposed to eat meat, not supposed to do this, not supposed to do this. So in other words, what's the difference between killing a fish and killing a cow? And then you consume that. What's the difference between killing a tree and killing a human? Okay, but I need the wood to build a house. Okay, well, I need a human because I need food. So in other words, was the argument that the Queen made a non-legitimate argument? No, she actually made a legitimate argument. Because you give consent to participate to watch one animal consume another, right? A lion consuming a zebra? That's okay. But if you watch your children being consumed by something else, that's not okay. That's called a paradox. That's called a contradiction. You can't be both. Which is it? Now you're back to the law of one. Okay? Began with us. Began with a one. So now you get into the math of adding up all the crimes. Okay? The math doesn't lie. So now you're into the energy debt side. Oh, well, I guess what it's been, I've been consuming, I've been killing all these animals. Well, you know what? Here's something else you might want to throw into the math. I'd hand somebody, say, $500 and say, hey, listen, go kill this tree for me. Okay? And then you can have the lumber. I'll just give it away to you. So that person then goes, cuts down all that lumber, killed all those trees, and earned $500 while doing it. Okay? That's going to create an energy debt, isn't it? Okay? So then all of a sudden, now you turn around and use your energy to go out there and plant all the seeds. Well, I just planted 1,000 more trees. Okay, now those trees come back. Now you can actually measure the difference in the torque speed differential in water worlds and also measure the exchange rate between oxygen and carbon dioxide as to how long your planet ship is going to last before the lights go out. Do the math. The math doesn't lie. So when you're on the center point of every sphere, which is the center point of every cell membrane, you're always at zero, which means time doesn't exist. That's called total surrender to yourself and wish to serve forever on behalf of the one, which is what love is. And you will light yourself on fire. I did. I experienced it, so I know what the truth is. So it makes it easy to expose anything that isn't the truth because you're experiencing something that's less than what we are. So you can't be one and be the other. You either are what love is or you're not. And if you're not, we're going to be able to know the difference between the two. And that's simple as simple does. It means you're filling up all the space. Time doesn't exist. because it's moving so fast. And this is when I mentioned about being a percussionist. Keep adding on more instruments, which is one of the reasons why I gravitated when I was a small child to start with beating, my toes, all my toes, all 5 little toes on both my feet are playing music just like this. And my other little fingers would be doing the same thing, right? Which means everything is moving, woo, making music in harmony and balance with the flow. So when I was a child, it's like keep wanting to add on more sets, more pieces, more sound, different sounds, right? So I started out with a bass drum, had a snare. I did not have a tom yet, but I had the cowbell, make the cowbell, right? A block, like he hit a stick, a wooden stick against wood, but it's had a little slice along it where you have the air, right? Ding. That's not like a ding, that's more like metal, but you have the sound of the wood with air, right? And a stick, another wooden stick hitting it. Then you have the hi-hat, the top hat, and then you can add toms. You can add anything that you want that makes a sound. So now you're coordinating in rhythm and harmony, all the different sounds, but you're keeping a beat. So I was running 2 bass drums, okay? Running 2 bass drums. Now you wanted to have that many more instruments going, and the more instruments you keep adding, you become your own orchestra. Now you wanted to play all the instruments. So imagine you're playing all the instruments from which they all came, right? So you can see how that works, being a monopole, right? So anyway, it's just another truthful day. I just tell the truth on what it is I experienced, and I share it with all of you. Have a great day. Be good to yourselves.